If you love epic fantasy stories with unexpected twists, make sure to click that subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss any future videos. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Now, let's enjoy the video. I was just a doll, perhaps with some thought processes and a strong learning ability. But there was still a large difference compared to a human. My values were likely related to Zhang Lin. We walked for another approximately 3 kilometers, encountering many Tier 1 creatures along the way, obtaining a stone treasure chest and numerous wooden treasure chests. The stone treasure chest was found near that Tier 2 blackthorn wolf, and the wooden treasure chests were all obtained with a 5% chance of containing low-grade Tier 2 items. Tier 2 and even Tier 3 creatures were quite rare. We had only encountered one blackthorn wolf after walking such a long distance. I had become quite skilled at hunting these ferocious beasts and monsters after this stretch of the journey. Was it gradually adapting to this bloody and cruel mist world? Or was it the words Zhang Lin said earlier that were taking effect? Zhang Lin wasn't even sure. However, what was certain was that whenever we passed the territory of mist creatures, they always directed their attacks towards me, and didn't show any malice towards Zhang Lin. This resulted in Zhang Lin having very little opportunity to act. And so, one person and one doll continued onward. Boom! Boom! Huge and muffled sounds echoed. Suddenly, a colossal figure appeared in the distance, making Zhang Lin's heart race. This giant creature stood there like a small mountain, its massive body obscuring a large portion of the view, making anyone who looked upon it feel fear. Is this an elephant turtle or something? Zhang Lin was very surprised. He had never seen such a huge creature before. Before he could react, I raised my hand, preparing to attack. He quickly stopped me. This elephant turtle-like giant creature's shell was covered in holes, and he didn't know what was hidden inside. It moved slowly, and each step caused the ground to tremble. It didn't harbor any malice. Zhang Lin somehow felt this. Toxic mist elephant turtle. Tier 2 ferocious beast. Juvenile neutral creature. It generally doesn't attack proactively. Its shell can spray highly toxic mist. Contact with creatures of the same tier or below will turn them into mindless puppets, obeying its will. Note: it seems to be attracted to you, and has developed good feelings towards you. So that's how it is. Zhang Lin scratched his head. This was the first time he had encountered something like this. The seduction potion could actually make a neutral creature develop good feelings towards him. This meant he was half as likely to encounter danger in the mist. He had encountered neutral creatures before, but those creatures would immediately turn hostile as soon as they saw him. Although he wasn't afraid, it was quite tiring to constantly be fighting for his life in the mist. Not to mention exhausting and draining stamina. Running out of stamina quickly meant you wouldn't be able to go far, severely affecting exploration efficiency. Looking at the toxic mist elephant turtle, which was at least 5 meters tall, Zhang Lin found it hard to believe this enormous creature was only a Tier 2 juvenile. How large would it be if it were an adult? What tier would it be? The toxic mist elephant turtle looked at Zhang Lin and let out a muffled cry. A gust of wind rushed over, the air exhaled by it, mixed with a strange odor. This smell. Zhang Lin covered his nose. Looking disgusted, he felt like he was covered in the toxic mist elephant turtle's bad breath. It was probably greeting him. Zhang Lin didn't quite agree with this method, but he could only accept it. Just then, he saw a stone treasure chest on the back of the toxic mist elephant turtle. I want that. Is that okay? He pointed at the treasure chest and asked the giant creature's massive head. He wasn't sure if the creature could understand him, but he wanted to try. The toxic mist elephant turtle responded. but Zhong Lin clearly couldn't understand if it was agreeing or refusing. Zhong Lin looked at me, who was just as puzzled as he was. Zhong Lin thought for a moment, and stared into my cold and bewildered eyes, saying seriously, "It clearly agreed." Without giving the elephant turtle a chance to react, his right hand's thorn vine bracelet shot out like a purple vine, wrapping around the stone treasure chest and bringing it into his hands. "Thank you, turtle brother." Quote, "Ah." The elephant turtle let out a series of cries, and Zhong Lin thought it was saying, "You're welcome," rather than being shameless. Ah. Boom. Boom. After a friendly exchange, both sides were satisfied, and the elephant turtle walked away happily. Before leaving, it covered Zhong Lin with snow, likely a way for its species to express affection towards friends. Although Zhong Lin didn't particularly like it. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. If you receive a benefit, accept it. Only I stood to the side, seemingly learning something, widening my mirror-like, crystal-clear eyes, as if having an epiphany. Cough. Regardless, obtaining a stone chest without a fight is still worthwhile. Not bad, it's a higher-tier stone chest. I now understood the tiering of chests. Wooden chests corresponded to Tier 1, and stone chests to Tier 2. However, the system's classification wasn't so simple. Within each corresponding tier, there was a probability of dropping items of a higher tier, though the probabilities differed. Therefore, there were two types of chests within the same tier, which I termed advanced and basic chests. Taking the stone chest as an example, a 5% chance of dropping a Tier 3 item signified a basic stone chest, while a 25% chance signified an advanced stone chest, though the probabilities of obtaining a Tier 3 item seemed small for both. The difference was significant. Moreover, the quality of items in advanced chests was often higher than in basic chests. This was an experience I gained from opening so many wooden chests. Therefore, advanced chests were rare, as they often yielded items of even higher tiers. Like winning a lottery, I speculated that this chest mechanism was deliberately created by the system to allow survivors to grow successfully. Killing Tier 1 creatures might yield an advanced wooden chest, which in turn had a chance of dropping a Tier 2 item, allowing them to continue resisting higher tier dangers. I had to admit, this mechanism was quite humane and reasonable, providing survivors with a channel to improve through effort. And this mechanism was even more beneficial to me, because I possessed the mutation art, allowing me to mutate and upgrade objects. As long as I obtained an advanced chest, I had a relatively high probability of directly obtaining an item 2 tiers higher than the chest itself. For example, Xiao Ying was a Tier 3 puppet I luckily obtained from a basic stone chest, and was also my first Tier 4 combatant. Thinking about this, I carefully stored the advanced stone chest, judging from the combat power of the venomous fog elephant tortoise. Advanced stone chests were rare and difficult to obtain. I wonder what a Tier 3 chest looks like. I hadn't yet encountered a Tier 3 creature, but had encountered Tier 4 creatures twice. This indicated that while the mist tide increased the dangers within the fog, the density of high-tier creatures wasn't very high, as it was still within the novice protection period. My luck, or misfortune, in encountering 2 Tier 4 creatures yesterday was extraordinary. Hua! The mist exhaled by me condensed into a large white mass in the frigid air. Xiao Ying followed faithfully at my side. A foot behind me, snowflakes fell on her sable coat, dyeing the collar white. Approximately 6 kilometers from the shelter, I could clearly feel the ground beginning to slope. There should be a mountain ahead, but due to the visibility, I could only see the scenery within 30 meters. I couldn't judge how high or large the mountain was. I now had two choices. One was to detour in the direction of another side of the shelter, as I did yesterday, and return from that direction. The other was to continue forward, venturing into the unknown depths of the mountains. Choosing the former would allow me to map out the approximate layout of the stone house in each direction, and avoid any unforeseen circumstances that might threaten the shelter. Choosing the latter would allow me to continue exploring further into the mist, perhaps yielding more rewards. I was torn, but couldn't find an answer. Both options were unknown, and whether they were good or bad could only be left to fate. Unable to make a decision, I looked at Xiao Ying, deciding to let my doll choose, and see how her luck fared. Xiao Ying, do you prefer 1 or 2? Xiao Ying's crystalline face, reflecting silver light, clearly startled, apparently caught off guard by my sudden question. But a main problem had to be answered. She looked at the two of them and replied coldly, "Master, I prefer 2. You really are a bit of a blockhead." However, just as the teasing words were about to escape his lips, Zhang Lin thought better of it. Xiao Ying was so obedient, and she took his thoughts to heart. That was precisely why Zhang Lin didn't need to joke with her. He could simply state what needed to be done, and she would execute it perfectly. That's right, Xiao Ying was good in every way, compliant, intelligent, and observant. But she always strictly followed Zhang Lin's commands and rules, appearing stiff and overly serious. This personality could make people feel secure and reliable, but it also created a strange sense of distance, subconsciously treating her like a tool. She had only recently been born, and many of her concepts were dependent on Zhang Lin. Perhaps he should give her some time to adjust. Having finalized the plan, Zhang Lin didn't hesitate and led Xiao Ying towards the unknown mountains ahead. It was 11:25, and there was still plenty of time. This was his first time venturing this far into the mist, and he didn't know what might happen, so he slowed his pace considerably. After walking for a long time, the mist gradually became thicker, shifting towards a grayish-black hue. "Be careful," Zhang Lin reminded, slowly tightening his grip on the serpent's tooth blade. The ground here was unusually steep, and coupled with the snow, it made their progress difficult. Perhaps they had reached the halfway point of the mountain. Judging by the distance they had traveled, this mountain range might be quite large. Xiao Ying also became serious, her crystalline eyes particularly vigilant. She always obeyed Zhang Lin without question. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, a little girl's laughter sounded unexpectedly from somewhere nearby. Zhang Lin was startled. Where did this little girl come from? He glanced at Xiao Ying, but she didn't react at all. "Did you hear that?" He wondered if he had misheard. No. Zhang Lin felt something was strange, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He waited in place for a moment, but nothing unusual happened. Shaking his head, Zhang Lin dismissed it as an auditory hallucination. He continued forward. He discovered a series of goat tracks. The tracks weren't large, but they were deeply embedded in the snow. The mist would erase traces, something he had confirmed early on when he arrived in the mist world. The fact that he could see the tracks meant the owner of those tracks had just been here. Zhang Lin became tense, but the dream eye gave no warning. Perhaps this creature didn't harbor any ill intentions towards him? Feeling that something wasn't right, he didn't want to continue forward at this moment. He used his eyes to signal Xiao Ying to follow him and slowly retreated. 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers. Zhang Lin suddenly felt something was off. According to this distance, he should have already left that unknown mountain range. So why was he still going downhill? He pulled out the permanent shelter pointer. It showed that he was indeed closer to the shelter and that he was on his way back. Zhang Lin frowned, wondering if he had misjudged things and hadn't paid attention on the way. Sure enough, as he went further, he reached flat ground, leaving the mountain range behind. I must have misjudged things, Zhonglin thought. He continued forward until he had walked nearly 6 kilometers. The pointer indicated that the shelter was near, and he breathed a sigh of relief, quickening his pace. It was close. He clearly felt the surrounding environment becoming familiar. The stone house was likely just ahead. He glanced at Xiaoying, and her crystalline eyes looked back at him. Shaking his head, he dismissed the strange feeling in his heart. He had returned a little early today. Perhaps he could use the workbench to make something, as he had exchanged some iron yesterday. As he went forward, the mist gradually dispersed thanks to the mist-clearing collar. But soon, Zhonglin widened his eyes as the edge of a massive pit appeared before him. Zhonglin couldn't believe it. He quickly rushed forward, and as the mist receded, it was as if a cliff had materialized before him. No, impossible. I felt everything was so unreal. I suddenly leapt forward, the thick snow being kicked up a long distance behind me. How could this be? Isn't this still within the newbie protection period? I strode to the center of the pit, only to find that where the stone house should have stood, there was now just a pile of shattered stone fragments. These fragments seemed to have been brutally trampled by some enormous creature. What pained me even more was that little hoe and little axe hadn't been spared either. The two little constructs had been trampled beyond recognition, reduced to a pile of tiny fragments scattered across the snow. How? I rushed forward in 3 large strides. I knelt on the ground, trembling as I reached out with both hands, trying to piece together the fragments of little hoe and little axe. However, the fragments were far too small, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't restore them to their original form. I didn't even notice how emotional I had become, a stark contrast to my usually calm demeanor. Several hours passed, and I stood like a statue in the middle of the pit, silent and motionless. Snowflakes drifted down, landing on my shoulders, almost building me into a snowman. But I seemed oblivious. I observed that the pit was generally shaped like a hoofprint, likely caused by a single strike from a creature far larger than I could imagine. Without shelter, nightfall might mean my death. Sigh, it was all for naught. In this final moment, I suddenly recalled my life. Born an orphan, I matured quickly, and was once full of youthful vigor. Life eventually wore me down. Actually, it was quite dull, which is why I was happy when the apocalypse came on Blue Star. But I didn't know if it was a prank by some god that I ended up in this world, full of danger yet wonderfully exciting. Here, effort brought reward, and sacrifice brought return. Even a fleeting existence was better than squandering a lifetime. I had met 2 companions and also Xiaoying. I had a small home that lacked nothing. I had even vowed to slay gods. But reality had slapped me in the face, just like when I was brutally trampled by life on Blue Star. Just a nameless creature passing through, and everything I had was gone. I actually really liked this world. But now, I don't. Just at that moment, I felt as if an invisible force had suddenly tugged at me, making me feel dazed. I involuntarily turned my gaze to the side, eventually settling on Xiaoying. Xiaoying was still quietly following me, her cold, crystalline face radiating silver light like cold jade, as usual. But was she a little too quiet? A strange feeling welled up in my heart, and I frowned, racking my brain. But I always felt something was blocking me. Just then, I quickly reached into my pocket and, in a blink of an eye, pulled out the snake tooth blades, throwing them towards Xiaoying like lightning. In an instant, the blades streaked through the air, slicing through snowflakes and turning them into countless ice shards. Faced with this sudden attack, Xiaoying didn't panic. After all, she was a 4th-tier automaton. "What are you doing?" Xiao Ying caught the blades with her crystalline, silver-lit hands. The sharp snake-tooth blades didn't harm her skin. She looked at me with confusion. Seeing this, I, whose face had been lost in thought, suddenly smiled. I thought to myself, so that's how it is. I hadn't figured out a way to break the deadlock. But my entire state had undergone a dramatic change. Just a moment ago, I had a blank, vacant expression. But now, I seemed like a completely different person. My gaze deepened, my mind racing. It was as if what had possessed my body just now wasn't me, but a stranger of unknown identity. The reason for this change was simple. I had confirmed that I wasn't currently in reality, but within my own imagination. I ignored the Xiao Ying in front of me and began to circle the pit, pondering how to return to reality. When had I started entering the illusion? It was after I heard the laughter, when I asked Xiao Ying, "Did you hear that?" Quote, Xiao Ying's answer was, "No." Was there a problem? On the surface, no. But if it were real life? At that moment, from Xiao Ying's perspective, her answer should have been strange. Why? Because if she hadn't heard anything, her answer shouldn't have been, no, but a questioning. Why would Zhang Lin hear a sound? Quote, so, she would have first expressed confusion, then asked me, was there a sound? Quote, and if she had heard it, the situation would have been even more off. Because Xiao Ying would never deceive me. Therefore, the stiff answer of no shouldn't have come from Xiao Ying at that time. At the very least, she would have prefaced it with, Zhu, master. What followed was even more fantastical. I saw hoof prints. And for the sake of safety, returning the way I came was understandable. But why did I immediately leave the mountains after realizing the distance was off? And when I wanted to return to the shelter and craft something at the workbench? Why was the shelter destroyed by an unknown creature? Because the workbench was a product of the system, the illusion couldn't materialize the interface. Just like now. System panel, I thought internally. As expected, nothing happened. Why had I subconsciously ignored the system? Because the creature creating this illusion didn't want me to remember it. Because that would leave too many loopholes. Putting aside the system's functions, just the regional chat, I couldn't even imagine what those people would say. All these strange things became the prelude to me noticing Xiao Ying's abnormality. Xiao Ying was aloof and didn't talk much. But she wasn't indifferent to everything. At least, she cared about her master. Me. Seeing me sad, how could she really be so unmoved? She was a doll, but she had thoughts, cognition, and therefore, emotions. And my probing of Xiao Ying became the final straw confirming that this world was false. If I were in reality, and I attacked Xiao Ying, whether she would defend herself was debatable. But she would certainly ask me, confused, Master, what did I do wrong? Something along those lines. These were all the flaws I discovered in this illusion. Whether there were more wasn't important anymore. Since I knew it was an illusion, I needed to think about how to return to reality. I considered the entity that pulled me into the illusion to be an anomaly. But my dream eye skill hadn't been activated. That left 3 possibilities. 1. The anomaly was above Tier 4. 2. The anomaly had no malice towards me. 3. The anomaly wasn't an entity. The third possibility could be ruled out. An entity refers to everything that objectively exists. If the anomaly didn't objectively exist, how could it influence reality? The first possibility was also unlikely. I was still in the system's beginner protection period. A Tier 4 or higher existence was beyond the scope of the situation. The Mist World didn't need to pull so many people in to die. That left the second possibility. It had no malice. The word malice is quite thought-provoking. Sometimes, you don't need malice to kill. You might even kill with good intentions. So, This unknown entity doesn't harbor malice towards me. It simply does things that have a negative impact on me. Its actions aren't defined by good or evil, but can be described with one word: instinct. That's right. Perhaps it simply acts on instinct. It isn't targeting me specifically, but is treating this like a game. However, for those participating in this game, the outcome could be death. But since it's an entity, there must be a weakness. Just like the distorted consciousness entity from last time, I came before Xiao Ying and pinched its cheek, feeling like I was touching a soft mirror, a very strange sensation. I actually look pretty convincing. I clicked my tongue. Where exactly is the weakness in this situation? I probably shouldn't focus on these superficial things, but return to the essence of the problem. The entity's behavior is logical. For example, the one that led me astray last time aimed to keep me away from the shelter, resulting in my death in the fog. Like the wandering mist, it roams to devour living creatures and grow stronger. What about this entity creating illusions? Is it simply to make me feel despair? No, it's probably not that simple. Then, a flash of insight struck me. It was as if I had grasped something, and a relaxed smile appeared on my lips. I had a thought. Now, it was time to verify it. You stay here, I'll be right back, I said to the Xiao Ying before me. I didn't wait for a reaction, and walked directly towards the mountains from which I had come. Where are you going? A cold voice came from behind me, belonging to Xiao Ying. I wore a mocking smile, and didn't even turn my head. Xiao Ying wouldn't ask me that question. She would just say, yes. I walked further and further away, leaving deep footprints in the snow. Yes? What is yes? Xiao Ying stood rooted to the spot, her expression confused. That's right, I intend to continue deeper into the mountains. I had fallen into several thought traps. First, I assumed this was a world of my imagination. But it wasn't. I isn't in control here. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many loopholes. Second, this illusory world is controlled by the entity, but the overall structure is generated from my subconscious. Therefore, the entity can influence my thoughts to a certain extent, which is why I can't remember the system. Third, the entity's behavior is logical, and it has been influencing me from the very beginning, to prevent me from going deeper into the mountains. From the moment I saw the sheep hoof prints and chose to retreat, it had been influencing me. It even destroyed the shelter, hoping to make me despair and ignore this most obvious loophole. These 3 points prove that the key to breaking the situation lies within the mountains. And that's likely where the entity's core, the being dominating this illusory world, resides. The entity won't have a dead end. This is something I deduced through past experiences and accounts from other survivors. As expected, I encountered numerous overt and subtle obstacles along the way, such as attacks from fierce beasts and the tracks of enormous creatures. But I completely ignored them, because I knew that if the entity could directly harm me, it wouldn't go to such lengths with this elaborate scheme. Finally, I reached the mountains. The mastermind of the illusion was here. The obstacles I had encountered along the way had completely confirmed this. At that moment, my gaze was drawn to a string of sheep hoof prints in the snow ahead. I stopped, a cold smile spreading across my lips. I raised my right foot and forcefully stomped on the string of hoof prints. With a muffled snap, snow and mud splattered, and the string of hoof prints instantly became blurred and indistinguishable. After completing this, I didn't look back and continued walking forward. Looking at the stream of refreshed messages in the area chat, I finally relaxed a little. So I fell for another strange occurrence. I couldn't help but feel a little stifled inside. I possessed quite a few life-saving methods, and even had a top-tier combat puppet like Xiao Ying. Logically, I should have been invincible during the newbie protection phase. Who would have thought I'd encounter another unpredictable strange occurrence? One that Dream Eye couldn't detect, and possessed no malice, only instinct. I didn't know where the entity's true form was, or if it would even reappear. I wasn't afraid of it, but I wanted to try and kill it, to see how it differed from a ferocious beast. To be humiliated like this. I was determined to let it feel the power of Xiaoying. But this idea was clearly unrealistic. The mountain range was so vast, when would I even find it? My time was also valuable. I couldn't afford to waste it. Let's go, Xiaoying. Sighing, I had to swallow my frustration, vowing to make the entity pay when the opportunity arose. Xiaoying's bright eyes blinked, not understanding why her master suddenly seemed so angry. Had she done something wrong? She felt a little uneasy, pondering if she'd done something to displease her master. Each lost in our own thoughts. The man and puppet continued to slowly move forward on the rugged mountain path. I could clearly feel the path ahead becoming steeper, meaning we were nearing the second half of the mountainside. We encountered many Tier 1 creatures along the way, many of whom were neutral and didn't attack me. Those who attacked indiscriminately were easily dealt with by Xiaoying. Xiaoying seemed a little agitated. Her attacks much more violent. She often left corpses torn to shreds. I didn't understand, assuming she was simply tired of traveling and killing. I glanced at the time. 1:22 p.m. I'd walked for about 2 hours since encountering the strange entity. I took out my compass, which indicated we were approximately 10 kilometers from the shelter. Another kilometer was the limit. While going downhill was faster than going uphill, I still needed to leave enough time to return. Thinking that I'd only found a few treasure chests and materials today, I felt a little disheartened. After walking another few hundred meters, I suddenly felt something was off with the ground beneath my feet. It was much harder than dirt. I used my hand to brush away the snow and discovered it was metal. I and Xiaoying retreated a few steps. The ghostly thorn bracelet on my hand transformed into several ghostly vines, beginning to sweep away the snow. Soon, the scene on the ground emerged, revealing a closed, metal hatch. The hatch was about 10 square meters in size, embedded in the mountain range. It was easy to overlook if you didn't look carefully. What is this? A bunker or a base? I had never seen such a structure in the Mist world before. I thought today's exploration would end here, but unexpectedly discovered such a pleasant surprise. This relic, clearly a product of technology, held significant exploratory value, perhaps containing many secrets and valuable items. Since we've come this far, we have to take a look inside. With that thought, I decided to explore. Having a Tier 4 combatant like Xiaoying with me should provide a good level of security. And I had a feeling the clue to the protective core lay within. The name Protective Core sounded very futuristic, perfectly matching the iron bunker before me. Thinking this, I no longer hesitated and ordered, "Xiaoying, break it down." I hadn't found a way to open the door, so I chose brute force. Hearing the command, Xiaoying's delicate face immediately turned serious. She slightly bent her knees, firmly planting her feet on the ground. The next moment, she sharply raised her long, powerful right leg, forming almost a straight line with her body, and heavily kicked the sturdy iron door. A deafening bang echoed through the air. Debris flew everywhere, and the iron door was forcefully smashed, creating a hole large enough for a person to pass through. The edges of the opening were jagged, the iron bending inwards, revealing a dark passage within. Excellent, I nodded in satisfaction, patting Xiaoying's shoulder in encouragement. Hearing my praise, a faint smile touched Xiaoying's lips, and silver light flickered in her crystalline eyes. However, I didn't notice this. I was already studying the internal structure of the building. The building was indeed constructed inside the mountain, and this should be a passage leading into it. The passage was long, and the end was not yet visible. "Let's go take a look," I said, taking the lead and squeezing through the hole in the iron door. I pulled out a windproof lighter and lit it, the faint purple flame illuminating the surroundings. This building, like a survivor's shelter, could isolate the mist. Although the flame was weak, it could illuminate a considerable distance. Now, with a physique of 18, my vision was sharp enough to see things tens of meters away. Unfortunately, the passage was long, and the flame didn't reach the end. Xiao Ying had followed, and I continued to walk forward. The sound of my leather boots clanging against the ground echoed through the passage, reverberating from the depths. Judging by the sound, the passage wasn't very long. We should reach the end soon. It was amazing how Xiao Ying moved. Her footsteps were so light they were almost inaudible. A Tier 4 automaton certainly had unique advantages, with exceptional control over her body. Soon, we reached the end of the passage, and I could clearly see a large space ahead. We stepped out of the passage and entered the vast space. I could distinctly smell a long-sealed scent of rust, mixed with a strange odor. Looking into the deep and quiet vast space, I didn't hesitate and continued forward. I wasn't worried about safety. The dream eye could guard against malice. The ghost thorn bracelet would automatically defend. And Xiao Ying was incredibly fast. The space was empty, with not even a trace of anything, as if everything inside had vanished into thin air. Just then, I suddenly felt a pull on my vision. The dream eye activated. I quickly gained a vision of an unknown creature that held malice toward me. In the pitch-black space, it was fixated on the faint spherical flame. It seemed the allure enhancement of the temptation potion hadn't affected this creature. "Xiao Ying, be careful to the right front," I commanded calmly. I had locked onto the creature, indicating it was no stronger than Tier 3 and wouldn't pose a threat to me. Xiao Ying instantly assumed a combat stance, her silver eyes fixed on the darkness to the right front. Suddenly, a sound of metal scraping echoed, seeming to indicate something was standing up. But because it was too far away and the lighter's light was too weak, it was impossible to see clearly. I belatedly realized I hadn't brought any lighting. I rarely moved around at night, and the shelter had strange oil lamps, so I had unconsciously overlooked this point. I need to pay attention to that when I return. I made a decision in my mind, but now wasn't the time to consider such things. Holding the windproof lighter in my left hand and the serpent tooth blade in my right, I threw the blade forcefully toward the direction identified by the dream eye. In the unknown creature's vision, a cold light shot forward, but it didn't seem to react. A thud sounded. I sensed the serpent tooth blade collide with an extremely resilient object, causing no damage. Tier 3 or higher. My heart clenched. Only creatures of Tier 3 or higher could withstand the serpent's tooth blades. I didn't panic, recalling the blades. The battle was no longer under my control. To deal with a creature like this, I had to rely on Xiao Ying. Clang! Asterisk with a metallic collision, I knew the creature was rapidly hurtling towards me. I didn't dodge. I knew Xiao Ying would act. As expected, accompanied by a gust of wind, a tall creature radiating metallic luster appeared. It was humanoid in shape, with viscous flesh at its joints. The mechanical creature was now swinging its massive metal arms, lunging at me. Xiao Ying's eyes flared with sharp silver light as she kicked towards the mechanical creature. The kick even generated a sonic boom. It was only as tall as the mechanical creature's thigh. Our figures like a child facing a giant. But the kick produced a violent impact, firmly blocking the mechanical creature's attack. To my surprise, the mechanical creature wasn't sent flying. I saw a faint blue shield radiating from its metal surface, barely blocking Xiao Ying's kick. But the shield was covered in cracks, on the verge of shattering. Taking advantage of the momentum, Xiao Ying flipped and leapt with her other leg, slamming into the shield. A crack echoed, and the shield shattered. Boom! Xiao Ying's leg slammed into the mechanical creature's head, sending it flying backwards with a screeching metallic scraping sound. The instant they collided, I activated my system scan. Alien mechanoid, Tier 3 beast, resulting from an unknown mutation of a mechanical being, mass-produced by a forgotten civilization. Possesses immense physical strength and can activate a crystalline shield with a protective core. Killing it will yield a protective core. Note: it's beyond your capabilities right now. Go back and train. I ignored the system's footnote. I knew I couldn't handle this alien mechanoid, but I had Xiao Ying. What truly concerned me was the building itself. This was a ruin of a forgotten civilization, and the alien mechanoids were mass-produced. That meant this vast mountain space might be filled with more of these machines. I felt as if a pile of protective cores were beckoning to me. But I didn't have much time. Now that I'd found protective cores, solving this alien mechanoid and returning to the shelter to upgrade was the priority. Exploring this ruin could wait for another opportunity. Xiao Ying, finish it, I ordered, feeling a bit like I was giving orders through a proxy. Xiao Ying nodded and condensed countless mirror-like shards radiating silver light in her hands, accompanied by the whistling sound of air being sliced. Dozens of moon mirror shards shot out, piercing dozens of large holes in the body of the paralyzed mechanoid on the ground.